Welcome to the You're a Tourist podcast, where we get very serious and share a laugh or two about all the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of tourism that you may or may not have ever even thought about. By the end, hopefully we can give you some small changes that you can make that may help you be a better tourist. I'm your host, Katie Dudley, and today we're going to be talking about wildlife tourism. Ooh. And joining me for this topic today is a content specialist working for a science communication company. Welcome to the show, Dr. Devyani Singh. Uh-oh.
No, I just saw you freeze, so I don't know what you said, but I'm guessing it's good stuff. But hi.
It was great. It was great. We were just introducing you. Dr. Devyani Singh, you're content specialist working for a science communication company. So much, that's the bio you gave me, so much more to Dr. Singh than that, but we're going to get into all of that later. Mm-hmm. Okay, the first thing I like to do, Dev, with all of my guests before we jump in, just to get us kind of in the mindset of reminding us who we're talking about here with tourists, right? Mm-hmm. So we play a little game we like to call Tourists in the News.
Oh, wow.
So, the rules of the game are simple. I'm going to read you part of a headline, and you're going to answer what the tourist was doing to get in trouble. You're going to help fill in this headline. Yes.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, and so also, just so you know, you get up to 3 questions to like clarify and things like that if you want to ask before you guess.
Okay, gotcha.
Here we go. Mm-hmm. So headline number 1. Tourists can't do what with wild animals at national parks? So they can't do what with tourists. So this is the headline.
Okay. And I'm guessing this is like an American, news clipping?
Yes,
okay.
yes. Okay. This one is in the U.S.
Okay, so tourists cannot do what? So many things. But I'm just going to go with what everybody's doing nowadays is taking a selfie.
Oh, that's a good guess. And has been headlines before you. But no, we're getting up and close and personal with these animals a little bit more. The headline is Tourists Can't Stop Touching Wild Animals in National Parks. Stop touching. Tourists cannot stop touching.
What kind of wild animals are they touching? What was the context here?
Oh, I gotcha. I got not the whole article, but here we go. So since late May, park visitors, obviously this is last May. So this is May 2023. So since late May, park visitors have carried a newborn bison up a riverbank. They have driven a baby elk to a police station. They have pet and snapped a selfie with bison. And they have killed or crashed into a menagerie. Great word, journalist. A menagerie of animals in their cars and serially tormented bears. Yes.
While you were reading it or before you started reading, what was going in my head was just please nothing about bisons because that doesn't seem like a good idea. And there you go.
No. Yeah. And I think that's it. I think because bison, like on the surface, are just like do. Everybody's like, oh, what are they gonna do?
They don't look like do. I wouldn't go do with a wild buffalo. I don't know what people are doing with bison.
I don't know. Yeah, being stupid is what they are.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so let's see. So it says that they attribute the higher frequency of incidents to the surge of people who retreated to the outdoors during the pandemic. It says we're seeing more of this. This has always been going on, but we're seeing more of it post-pandemic because there was an increase of interaction with wildlife and people during the pandemic because people stayed away.
Yep.
And then the animals came out, and then the ones that were there, they're like, oh, look at all these animals. They want us here. We should.
2 years of like lockdown or essentially has reset everybody, and we've just forgotten how to interact with nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think that's been a common theme. Yeah. People have tourists have forgot how to act. Tourists didn't have a good track record to begin with. And now they're just getting with it. Yeah. Just getting with it. Okay. So here we go. Headline number 2. This one's getting closer to you. And I got to make sure I got to say all of this right. So 5 tourists were slapped with a 25,000 rupee fine for doing what on safari at Tadoba Tiger Reserve?
Oh man.
So 5 tourists had a fine for doing something while on safari.
This must be something outrageous. They be doing. So Tadoba is a tiger reserve. Please don't tell me they were trying to do something with. Did they try to like grab a cub or something?
Ooh, no. So that's good. But here, what they were trying to do may have led to this. So what they were doing was consuming liquor. So they were drinking while on safari.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and great ideas like picking up a tiger cub tends to come to you when you've been drinking. So it says reportedly the tourists departed Maharli Gate at the Tadoba Tiger Reserve with one individual in their group while riding in a gypsy, showing a strong interest. Oh, so they were showing a strong interest in spotting a tiger. But the driver realized, the attentive tour guide, it says, upon observing this inappropriate conduct that they were all drinking, swiftly intervened and cautioned the tourist about consuming alcohol. And despite the guide's warning, the tourist persisted. So the guide turned that car around and took them back to the gate.
Good on him. This guy deserves a raise. Yeah.
That's what I said. I was like, give that guy a round of applause.
I was thinking my second guess would have been they were blasting music because that's pretty much, drinking seems a very like low bar offense for Indians. And like, aren't half the people already drunk when they're on safari? So I would guess not at like those 5 a.m. ones, but in the evening ones maybe. After the bison one, I thought this was also I want nature in my face kind of a situation.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, ask and you shall receive. So let's see. So we've got another a reserved forest area. So is it GIR? Is that
Gear?
Gear. Okay.
Gear. Oh, yeah.
Gear. Okay. So in Gear, six people were fined, again, 25,000 rupees apiece for trespassing into a reserved forest area to do what? It's kind of innocent. I will give you that one.
It's innocent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything, yeah.
Okay. 6 people in Gear. What do you think? So Gujarat, where Gear is located, is a dry state, so you can't drink alcohol. So that one's out of the window. See, I'm being totally Sherlock on this one. I have to get at least one right. Did they enter the park without permission on foot?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they did it
to do something. Like, do I have to like complete it?
No. I think I'm going to give you this one because essentially, so the headline, and this maybe is on the headline writer. You could have given us something more, but the headline is that the 6 were fined for trespassing into the reserved forest area to see lions.
To see lions. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
So I think, this also gives us, I chose this as the third one because I think it can help launch us into our conversation about wildlife and tourists. But also it shows why that last guide needs a bigger raise. So it says 2 tourists and 4 other people were fined. I think the 4 other people were locals. 2 tourists and 4 other people were fined 25,000 rupees each for allegedly trespassing to watch the Asiatic lions in their natural habitat. Of these 6 persons, Of these 6 persons, 3 are local, and the 4th is a hotelier who made arrangements for the tourists to watch the lions after entering the restricted area without permission.
No.
Yeah, so it says the incident came to light around 3 weeks back following the 3 locals were caught for helping some tourists to enter the reserved area illegally.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because why waste your trip on just letting a guide take you in there? Yeah. You know, you gotta have that risk in there.
Of course.
Right?
Of course, yeah.
Right.
Because who wants another story of I saw a lion while I was in a safari vehicle? I mean, you need to be better off all the other people who visited who have ever visited the reserve and be like, oh no, my experience is more superior than yours. I went inside on foot. I mean,
I'm saying, yeah. And who better and more prepared and qualified to go in and just see a lion in the wild than a tourist?
Of course.
Yeah. Like, what could go wrong? Yeah. All right, Dev. Well, thank you for playing our game. You did fantastic.
I should have like overestimated what tourists could have done. So, but yeah, I am glad at least I got one right.
You did. Yeah. Don't overestimate, don't underestimate what tourists will or will not do. Because at the end of the day, they're the most important person in the world. Okay. So we're going to kick things off. So you gave me a very white toast bio of yourself to read to the listeners to kick off the show. You are so much more than a science communicator. You and I met, I'm rocking my Clemson. You and I'm met at Clemson. Tiger,
but yeah.
We got tigers. We got exactly. We got tigers all around this place, folks. So we met at Clemson. We were both getting our PhD there. I was working more specifically on tourism. You were doing a little bit of a crossover with this wildlife tourism, but your background is primarily more of the wildlife conservation and things like that. So why don't you just tell the listeners, kind of before we dive into everything, just kind of tell the listeners what you've done kind of leading up to Clemson, and then your dissertation and all of that research and I guess the things that move you, Dev, the things that move you.
That could take a while, but I'm going to stick to
I'll cut you off.
I'm going to stick to the script. So before I came to Clemson, I was kind of interested in I wanted to become a wildlife biologist before I started my master's. But then, it kind of struck to me like nobody was really looking at like how people connect with nature, like how can we not get everybody interested in nature, interested in wildlife, because I used to see this kind of disparity just within my family. Like, why am I more inclined into wildlife than my sister or my cousins or anybody else for that matter? So that kind of that was kind of like the first, the seed that kind of led me to look into exploring the connection between people and the environment at large. So I did my master's work was based on looking at outdoor spaces or parks as an educational tool for environmental education. And that from there I kind of said, okay, let's look at the connection between actual reserves and parks where you can actually view wildlife, and does that actually help create a more conservation or a nature loving or nature philic kind of behavior So that's what I kind of pitched when I was applying to Clemson. And that idea kept on snowballing into like, okay, what makes conservation work in India? Because that was the question that was pitched, brought up to me. Like, how is India
Yeah.
doing so well with tigers? Like, what is there something there you can kind of explore? So,
Yeah.
and it was an interesting question, like, how is India out of all the other countries that have tiger populations doing so well? Is it
Yeah.
because of the tiger? Is it because of the conservation efforts, or is it because of is it because of tourism? Is it because of the communities there? Like, what are we doing differently? So that was kind of
Yeah.
like the basis of the idea. And if you're studying like tigers and communities or anything human dimensions around tiger reserves, you have to look at the tourism aspect, because it's a major
Yeah.
it's a major aspect. So that's kind of where
Yeah.
my and I had done some work before in a tiger reserve in India, where we were kind of
Mm-hmm.
exploring how people the locals there are so in tune with tourism, and how
Yeah.
their cultural backgrounds, which are so in tune with nature and their environment and the tiger as well. How is that kind of helping tourism, and the other way around? We did a bunch of interviews, so I had that kind of background, and I kind of brought that into my research at Clemson. So I looked at conflict, I looked at tourism, I looked at the communities there, and yeah, instead of just dabbling into one area, I looked at like several different like aspects. So it's an entire like buffet of subject areas. It stopped becoming just conservation and just tourism a long time ago. So it's a little bit of political ecology, a little bit of community studies, sociology, a little bit of
Yeah.
conservation. So yeah. So
Yeah.
it was pretty
And I
interesting.
think Yeah, and I think that you brought up a lot of great connections there that, again, maybe a lot of listeners might not understand, where it's like you do have you have your hardcore people in conservation, you have in what, would be called the hard sciences and those types of things. And then you also just have your general animal lovers
Mm-hmm.
um, that oftentimes will say, right, we need to keep people away from these animals as much as possible and just let them go. But like what you brought up is tourism, while we can have all kinds of crazy things happen and crazy tourists, and the tourists themselves sometimes are harder to manage than the animals,
Mm-hmm.
it does serve a purpose,
Yeah.
right, to be able to introduce people to the animals.
Yeah.
um yeah,
Yeah.
you
I
get
mean,
to.
yeah. I mean, I think, well, first of all, like wildlife, the connection between, wild animals like the tiger. I'm going to specifically talk about tigers here because that's the one I know about the most. But even just
Mhm.
these charismatic wildlife in general, the connection between them and communities has been since like ages. And I think I
Mhm.
talk about this in my dissertation, not to like I want to go there in the deep dive, but like that connection was impacted by the colonial rule. Like there was
Mm.
when the Britishers they started ruling over India, there was a lot of their policies kind of were aimed at breaking that bond, so they could pull off a lot of natural
uh
resources for their benefit. So yeah, so that is
Gotcha.
also something that I kind of explored. But I think tourism is a great
Yeah.
way to kind of like um, patch up that kind of relationship. So I have a deep connection with this wild animal and this forest that I worship, and but
Mhm.
these policies that have been set up by the government or by these governing bodies are kind of creating a barrier between that. Like, okay, you can't go into the forest to worship because there are tigers and we need to protect them. So that's kind of
Mhm.
severing my relationship with my spiritual beliefs, my traditional beliefs that have been carried forward, have been I've
Yeah.
been taught since generations. So
Mm.
tourism in that way is a great supplement. I think in that way, when a person's like livelihood is taken away, we now there are kind of they have made a lot of people parks have made kind of relaxations where communities can visit their spiritual groves, and they can go worship
Yeah.
in the forest. Like those relaxations have happened. But it's heavily monitored, but
Mhm.
they've allowed that to they've communities to retain that. But in a context where livelihoods of communities who live around national parks, where you can't have industries,
Mm.
you can't have a lot of development. I think tourism is a great supplement. So I will never be anti-tourism in that sense. But there are a lot of ways that we can still be better at managing that in strictly a wildlife conservation perspective.
Yeah. Well, and I think we'll get to like some of these things where again, maybe some of the tourists, maybe some of the listeners have done this or they've been around or seen this happen. That takes us back to that guide of the second one. But let's back up a minute first because where are you at right now? Are you in Mumbai?
No, I'm in Delhi. So I moved from Mumbai and I'm in I'm around Delhi.
Okay. Because also so something that we like to dive into, something that's kind of the catalyst of this podcast, is this idea between a traveler and a tourist. And tourists, because of the negative connotation and everything else that tourists, have fulfilled over the years. Now it's people will love to just say, I'm not a tourist, I'm a traveler. And it's like, well, you can call yourself whatever the hell you want. But it tends to be, but it's like, you're a tourist. So, and it tends to be kind of where your part of the world, American tourists, the ones who really like to say that kind of shit, go to your part of the world a lot and say that. Do you agree with that? Do you believe that someone can be a traveler and not a tourist? Or at the end of the day?
I mean, sure.
I know.
I mean, it's okay. Right. Like, you can even be a tourist, and it's absolutely fine. Now, in the Indian aspect specifically, I think India is. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of restrictions. I mean, you can take 3 days to visit India and go back, and you can take an entire month, and it's still not enough. So it's fine to be either. It's fine to go down into the weeds and just go into like the nooks and crannies where even most urban Indians haven't been, and just do like traveler stuff. And I completely respect that. But it's not bad being a tourist as long as you're not being an ass. I mean, it's absolutely
right.
Yeah, there's no need for these labels. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that's what it's like. You can also call yourself a traveler and not a tourist and still be an asshole. So it's just like, it's like you can call yourself whatever you want. So I think that's one of the main things is, exactly like what you said. Just as long as you are being a good person, like, I don't care what you call yourself.
If you call yourself a banana, I don't care.
No. Maybe we'll come up with a new word for them, traveling bananas. Yeah. But I think that is and I don't know, I feel like maybe I'm trying to put words in your mouth here or whatever, but a lot of times whenever you hear about, especially some of these safaris, a lot of them, like in Africa and in different countries in Africa and stuff where we get the news stories, right, to where we just had one recently to where an American tourist died because the safari vehicle was in the way of an elephant got mad, attacked the vehicle, everything else. And now we have, a global crisis because an American tourist. But, and this is why I keep going back to that guide, but a lot of people maybe don't realize when we are talking about tourism, we are talking about things, we are talking about a very big wealth imbalance, power imbalance, things like that. And so when you've got a group of people telling you, I want to get closer, I want to get closer, I want to do this, I want to do that, sometimes it's hard for that local person to say no to the amount of money being offered to them, right? So, but then we also know, go on.
Just to just add something, I think a lot of times it's not just about the money. So Indians inherently, I wouldn't say like all Indians, but I would say most Indians, or just like talking about Indian culture in general, we live by this rule that your guest is like God. That there's a term that we use. It's called Atiti Devo Bhava, which means the guest is God. So here you have a bunch of like, I would say predominantly white tourists, and we know how much Indians love white people. So you have predominantly white tourists who are visiting the country that you would probably yourself not bother venturing out in yourself, but here you are, a bunch of people spending tons of money coming and visiting your country. And so you want to make them happy, and you want to like fulfill whatever wishes that you can. So a lot of that aspect comes from like not disappointing somebody who's made that journey and is willing to see your country. I think so. A lot of it is that, and of course the monetary aspect is an additional, kind of a motivator.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a lot of mindset stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So walk us through some of that stuff, that what you found, like what are some of the issues and things when we talk about kind of the tiger reserves, or do you have any stories? I know you've got some stories. I've heard some of your stories.
We got some. I mean, India has like 54, I think, tiger reserves in India. Not all of them are as well equipped to handle large volumes of like tourists. So we have like the top 5 or 6 where most of the tourists, kind of go to, both international and domestic. And these are the ones that boast of, the best sightings. And this is, the highest densities. And you have these like flash words which kind of like draw people in. So Ranthambore is one of them. Ranthambore has like a really good tiger density. So high chances of spotting. There are parts in like central India as well. Tadoba, like you had mentioned, people don't really actually need to go inside the park to view tigers. Like a lot of people who travel outside Tadoba, like in the local buses, will often spot like tiger cubs sitting like right by the road. So you don't even really know. Yeah. So you have like tigers spilling out of these places. So so you get a lot of interesting stories around here. So yeah, but like I said, but not all tiger reserves are, ready to handle heavy tourist footfall. So so these ones, Ranthambore, Corbett, these 5 or 6 parks, Kana, Bandhavgarh in central India, these are the ones that a lot of people go to, and they have the big resorts and the the flashy hotels and hotel people who will, for an extra buck, kind of give you a more like private experience, are more likely to give you a private experience, those kind of situations that happen. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I think most foreigners go to Ranthambore because it's proximity to New Delhi. That's where I live. And then to Agra. So they go, come land in Delhi, do some sightseeing here, go to Jaipur, go to Ranthambore, and then go to see the Taj Mahal, and then they're out. So that's the golden triangle tourism that they do. Yeah, yeah. So not much
they hit the size.
Scope for being a traveler there. So those are definitely tourists.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's it too, of where people are like, I'm a traveler, and it's like whatever. But it does come down to a lot of the things that you talk about. And what I was talking about, like with the woman with the elephant and stuff. So the main thing, if we can go, if we go if we go take a deep dive into academia language and all of that. So, one of the main things in tourism that define you as a tourist is you get to go home, or not you get to go home. It's a clear intent to return home. And so just by the very nature of that, you're a tourist, right? And so anybody who goes somewhere with the intent to return home is a tourist. And so that's what it is. So whenever you say like you pay an extra $1 and the hotelier will give you a different thing, or, like the woman and the elephant and things like that, that's where it's like, we get these big issues too that I think people don't think about is, yes, that tourist goes home or gets hurt or something like that. And if something does go wrong, or if that hotelier does get caught or something like that, they're the ones that get the brunt of the negative impacts that come with it. That could destroy a livelihood. It could destroy a park. It could destroy all kinds of things.
Yeah. I mean, I think now that I think about what you said about this, I need to see nature up close and personal. I think this also comes from people just having I would say like they kind of have a wrong idea about how safaris happen in India. I think you look at these videos from Africa, and you have your is sitting in a jeep or sitting in a car with a cheetah sitting on the roof, and they feel
Yeah.
like that's the model of tourism everywhere. If I'm going on safari, this is what I need to see, this is what I need to
Gotcha.
get. But like our I still don't, I mean, I'm not a cheetah scientist or a behaviorist or anything like that, so I don't know why cheetahs do that, or they're just that comfortable with humans.
Yeah.
But like our wildlife in India doesn't do that, and nobody will encourage anything like that happening. So I think they see that and they kind of want to replicate that here. And I think in the US as well, I mean, your parks are so large, they're not like managed the way that ours are. So you can have those up close and personal, interactions with wildlife, and it's still it's fine or whatever. But I mean, you can get away with it, but like you can't do that over here in India. And I think there needs to be some kind of like education behind, like, okay, animal behavior in general. Like if there is a lone elephant, for example, or a lone tusker, a male elephant, they're not supposed to be messed with. Like you stay the hell away from that guy, because elephant behavior is such, like they are most secure in a group, in a herd. And as long as they don't have the security of the herd, they're by themselves, they're extra, they're skittish, and you don't want to be in the way of a skittish elephant. And especially you're also in another situation if they have cubs, if they have like calves or calves. And so you want to stay away from that kind of a herd as well. It's just respect. I mean, you can like, again, like tourists, like if you're in an airplane and somebody tries to take like half an inch of your armrest, and you're just like suddenly territorial about, like, this is my side, just get off. Same applies. If you just apply the same logic with animals, there'll be fewer fatalities, there'll be just fewer injuries, and then everybody just has a good time, and you go home with all your limbs intact and a great story. And that's a win-win for the tourism sector where you're visiting, and you as a tourist as well.
Right. Yeah, I think that's, folks, just act like you're on an airplane. I don't know.
Just keep your shoes on in both context. Keep your shoes and socks on in an airplane and in a safari.
Yes. All articles of clothing. Yeah. Don't touch anything that you see. Like, don't take selfies with it. Yeah. I mean, I think all of those.
Respect personal spaces, I guess. Yeah.
It is weird. Where it's like, there's so much more. And I think this is like, and social media does this because, of course, everybody just has a curated version of themselves on social media and whatever. And so, for one, everybody is a traveler. Everybody loves to travel. And it's like, but do you love to travel, or do you love to like go to the same bar and resort in different areas of the world? But anyway, they do that, and then they're all animal lovers, right? And so, so it's just insane to me that it's like everybody, more and more people are saying how much they care about animals. Some are even, are like, I care about animals more than people, and like that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, we're seeing it like the interactions, just the stupid interactions of animals, where you're truly not thinking of them as these living, breathing, thinking, caring creatures, and they're just a backdrop for a selfie. Right. So it's just like, things aren't connecting.
They're not. I think people just have a very warped idea of what love is. Love doesn't have to be like, I have to be within like 2 inches of you at all times. I mean, if that's your notion about love, then you've got problems.
Right. Then we're gonna have to back that up a little bit further, aren't we?
Yeah. You can. I mean, and there's a difference between again, animal lovers and people like conservationists. Like I get a lot of like especially when I used to live in India before I came to Clemson. Somebody would just message me and say like, oh my God, I've got this injured, pigeon. Like, what should I do? And I'm like, take it to the vet. I mean, I can't help you. Or if you're expecting me to come all the way to your house and take a pigeon, and I'm not, no, those things are diseases. No.
Right. You're like, stop touching it.
We have too many pigeons. I can't care about each and every pigeon. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Have you watched The Lion King? It's the circle of life. Like, animals are going to die. Like, it happens. Yeah. It's not your job. Yeah. Exactly. Like that first article that we were talking about of like the people carrying like the baby calf, the baby bison and stuff like to a place. It's like, for one, calm down. Right. Again, nature works on its own. Nature's been working on its own for a very long time without you there saving that. And then as soon as a human touches and interacts with that, they have to put that animal down.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're not, yeah.
Well, in some cases, tourism, I mean, not to completely crap on all tourists alike, but in some cases, such interventions have been helpful. But in none of these cases have people remove the wild animal from their, location. So there have been incidences in, and that's why I talk about the positive aspects of tourism in wildlife spaces. And I will, in most cases, I don't want to say forever because people do stupid stuff as soon as I, give them some credit for it. So I just want to say star, disclaimer, whatever, if context applies. But I've always be an advocate for tourism, and I feel it is helpful for wildlife in cases, especially like there have been cases where tigers have been injured because of like they have barbed wire or some kind of like they've been sick or they've gotten to a territorial fight with another tiger, and they have notified the officials, and they have been able to take some medical intervention in timely medical intervention, which has saved tigers' lives. And tigers are an exception. Like, I mean, don't compare tigers and pigeons like the example I gave earlier, because we have a limited number of tigers and they're very important for the environment. So we need to save each and every one of them in the wild. So that kind of intervention here is important, and it's necessary, especially if they are full-grown animals and they are in a breeding, they in that breeding stage. So that in those sense, like tourists especially, and even these drivers and the guides that accompany people on safaris, they kind of know. And again, these are very specific to charismatic animals: tigers, elephants, leopards, because again, there are a finite number in national parks that we have, in tiger reserves in India. Almost all the tigers are tagged. They're given numbers. Like, people can visually look at a tiger and tell them, okay, this is T26 or this is T31. And because of these guides are excellent. They can identify tigers from the territories that they're in, the patterns that they have. They know like their entire genealogy. Like, okay, this one had a mom and she had 5 more cubs, and they have the entire family histories. So it's really amazing to see that connection. And that connection, that won't happen without tourism. But to exploit that, danger somebody else's livelihood because you want to have an up close and personal, interaction with the tiger. I mean, first of all, good luck. Second is just like, don't do that. It's not fair.
Do you think, you know how some animals, well, like bison and things like that, and where they talk about that they do get used to the tourists, they get more comfortable and they'll come up to the tourists and stuff like that. Are tigers like that? Or are tigers just like fuck off at all times?
I think they are like fuck off most of the time, but they will I mean, they're not shy. I mean, a lot of them, like especially the ones in Ranthambore, they're not shy. They like to like the one I saw, the last one that I saw in Ranthambore, just loved to like pose, and he did the entire belly up, like he was stretching. He was like paint me like one of your French girls, like posing, and he was having a moment. So a lot of people give that justification, right? Like, if the tiger's not like so that's when this entire debate started too, because these tigers would be like comfortable. So you have the wildlife group of people talking about like, we're changing tiger behaviors, and that's why tourism is bad, and this is not what tigers are supposed to do. They're not posing for tourists or whatever. And on the other side, you have tourists who are just like, if this tiger doesn't have any problem, let's go like a couple of feet closer. Let's just go a couple of feet closer till you've broken that
Yeah.
barrier of comfort, and then something bad happens. Though I haven't
Yeah.
heard in a while. I think there were a few incidences, but not recently, that of any tiger attacking tourists. But do you want to be that first case that happens?
Right.
Like, do you really?
Right. We've gone this long until this one stupid tourist.
The guy on the chalkboard, like 001 days without.
Change the sign, Larry. Take it down. We had Bob from Kansas City needed that selfie.
Yeah.
Show the boys back at work. Oh God.
Yeah. And also, I think that what has also changed, I think impacted how people view, especially again, just talking about tigers, is those tiger experiences that that used to happen. Like I think in Thailand, was it, where these tiger temples things happened, where you had people raising tigers and in this monastery, and people would come and just like play with them, like they're like your household cats, and you have to feeding them bottles and stuff. And I think that's the messaging that people take away with it. Like tigers are just big kitty cats.
So because we call them big cats. It's like,
it's on you. Why do you call them big cats?
Right.
You call them something else.
Exactly. But the fact of the matter is, I'll leave any size cat alone because they can mess you up. Even
they can mess you, even your cat. You try to cross them.
I know. Well, I think they can read me because I hate cats, and boy, do they hate me. Like it is. I've never met a cat I've got along with. And I mean, they get violent with me. Yeah. So I don't know. That's on me.
Yeah. I think all cats know that I'm a dog person. So.
Yeah, I think that's it. They know, and they're going to make you pay for it.
They know. Yeah. So
I remember, maybe it was when I was reading some of your work or talking about it, or maybe in a presentation or something, but you really talked about kind of the first time you saw a tiger. So this is, again, kind of this idea of getting more people to be able to have this experience of where we don't want to get to a point where we shut it down and stuff like that. So describe when you first saw a tiger, because you've been in love with tigers for a long time.
For as long as I can remember. So I think, so I have been to, I want to say like 10 tiger reserves. And it wasn't until, so I could say the first time I've been to a tiger reserve was 2000 and, was it 6? I think it was 2006, it was 2006. And after that, I think almost every year I have visited tiger reserves. I did not see my first tiger till 2011.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So imagine going to like that many parks, and I've revisited a couple of them as well. But being to that many parks and just coming back disappointed every time was just like, I was just like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to go close. I just need to see like, it's just a tail. Just the tail is fine. I just want to know they're real.
Yeah. If I'm going to put this much time thinking about them, I need to know they're real.
Yeah. So 2011, 11, I think I saw like in my first safari during that year, I just saw like just the tail, just the butt while it was like crossing through. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. That's good enough for me. It's good enough for me. I'm fine. And I think that was the point when I started getting like between 2006, 2011, I was getting like so many like setbacks, not visiting these places and not seeing a tiger. I started to be like, maybe birds are nice. And I started actually bird watching because I was like, see, if this is not going to work out, I need another passion that will bring me to parks. So I started bird watching.
Oh God. And you were young still at that point. You were not in the bird watching age.
So I started bird watching, and then I would come back with my list would be like, okay, so how many birds did I watch spot in this trip? And my aim would be to just like keep exceeding the last the list, and include a couple of lifers, like birds that you've seen for the first time in your life. Every trip. So that became like my motivation. And I'm like, and if we see a tiger, that's fine. So but when I did, it was like a surreal experience. I mean, and after that, almost every trip after that, that kind of like broke the curse. And after that, I think
Yeah.
I've been able to spot tigers everywhere, except one of my field sites in Dudhwa. I studied two parks in India. One was Dudhwa in Uttar Pradesh. Again, very difficult to sight tigers there because large area, less density, and so even though I was waiting in the forest for hours, we couldn't spot one. But Ranthambore, we had a fantastic sighting, so that was
Gotcha.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember you talking about it. It was just like, it was one of those things where, again, it's like you think about it, you whatever for so long, and then when you actually saw it, it was just like this, like take your breath away, like the world gets quiet and still, and it's like there it is, there's this.
But if the world doesn't get quiet, and that was the more annoying thing, because in Ranthambore, and that was the first time I saw a tiger. It was Ranthambore, and there you are, like imagine watching, looking at your most favorite. Because I can't, you know, any of your listeners, I don't know if they would be able to like relate to it if they had a favorite animal that they've never seen or something like that. But imagine your most favorite singer or your most favorite, actor, and you're watching them for the first time, and you want like just that magical connection. Just you just want to take it in. But while you're like taking that in and you kind of soaking up the moment, you have like 50 people be like, oh my God, that's like going like, oh my God. And then the one person screaming, one person, like their cameras going off, and there are like 50 other like beakers at the same time. So it's not a one-on-one kind of experience. It's kind of like it's a group experience, and everybody's doing what they want to. Somebody's trying to like fall out of their car, trying to take a photo from their cell phone camera, which wasn't like you won't be able to capture a tiger in your 1.3 megapixel Nokia. So then
it's not going to be the same, man. It's not going to be the same.
I'm like, and that time I would just go and like look at these people and like, really, like, what do you think? Just use your eyes, just like soak in the moment, because your phone is not going to do justice. I mean, we didn't have iPhones back then, so just look at it.
Yeah, nobody back home. You're going to show them your Nokia. People are going to be like, cool. Seems life-changing, Bob. Yeah.
So I think it's really, and after that, I always used to like keep one eye out on like what everybody else is doing, like, because everybody's behavior changes when you see a charismatic animal. It can be an elephant, or even for people, first timers, they see their first deer. It is so it is so mind blowing to them. And if they don't see a tiger, probably that's going to be pretty much it. So you have to keep them excited about the deer. Like, at least you saw some deer. I mean, that's great.
Yeah. At least you saw a deer, and then you could be like, "Hey, look up! Did you check out the birds?" I feel that I've heard that's a good second chance
great
there.
Strategy. Can really suck you in.
Right, they're just up there hanging out. They're just there for you to see.
Yeah, it's bird watchers propaganda. That's how we do it.
That's really why you're on here. You're like, I'm here to clear up some misconceptions about birders out there. They've just been having a bad rap, and you know what? Maybe they're good people.
They're not, though. I did an entire for one of I don't know if you remember, but for Dr. Bixler's class, I did an entire typology on birders and how they range from like novice to asshole.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we come in all shapes and sizes. We're a very interesting community.
Oh, so you still identify within the birder community. Okay.
I wish I did. I haven't bird watched in a while, but yeah, I think I will call myself a member of the group.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. Okay. So I don't want to focus on negative things and stuff like that, but I always ask my guests too of like, is there anything that you wish people maybe knew a little bit more about? And one thing that I want to touch on with that, because you've in past classes and things like that you've come and spoke at, you've thrown out some things here in the US of like like how many tigers and what the deal is and what we're actually, we all got on the Tiger King train a few years ago at the pandemic, but like I remember you saying you actually kind of didn't like that because it kind of made a mockery and it took attention away from like actual real problems that we do have with that. So can you just kind of talk a little bit about kind of what, and whether it's tigers, whether it's like any of these kind of, I don't know if exotic animals are the word. But what's going on here in the U.S.? What's happening?
The last thing I remember, I think the big cat act, or was it? I forgot the verbiage, but I think there was some kind of talk happening about restricting the private ownership of big cats. So I don't know. I'm not sure about like how far that's come into being implemented, but I think there has been a major crackdown on that, and I know a bunch of my friends were working on that and they were very passionate about it. But my I would say disappointment with the documentary was, although it was very interesting, I'm not going to lie, but like the real issue was the ownership and the future of these 3,000 plus privately owned tigers, which in the US, and their future and what's going to happen to them. The kind of conversation was taken away from that and focused on this whodunit around like, who did Carol Baskin actually kill, her husband, and all those kind of things. And then she went on to do Dancing with the Stars, I think.
Did she? I didn't. I know that.
So. So you made this person who I at that moment was being posited as a animal activist and made her a pop culture icon. And the reason why she was, the reason behind all that conversation, like the future of private ownership of tigers kind of got lost in the way, and that was very upsetting. And then my disappointment was like this could have been a more like conclusive like documentary, because we had everybody's attention. Like we had nothing else to do in the pandemic, and this could have been a great conversation point. I've seen a lot of people just become from regular people become like armchair activists, and I'm like, that's fine too. I mean, all of us couldn't, most of us, can't do everything, but like talking about it would have been a good idea, and we were talking about the wrong things, unfortunately. So I mean, talking about somebody's murder is fine too, but I think it would have been really helpful in the to the larger conservation conversation to talk about private ownership of big cats, or just like of exotic animals, the private ownership of exotic species in America.
Yeah. Because wasn't that like the number? It was just like there was like more tigers or big cats.
More privately owned tigers in the US than all the world combined. I think that was the statistic that was being thrown around then.
Yeah.
Which is just mind-boggling. Yeah.
Because like you say, I mean, the parks that you work with and the reserves that you work with, it's like there's all this money, all of this research, everything just trying to make sure that we maintain these tiger populations in the wild because of how important they are. Right. And then like we're sitting over here in the US just breeding them to try and get selfie opportunities.
Right. And I think a lot of people kind of just dissociate a value of a tiger is the most when it's in its habitat in the wild. Like you can we're not just keeping them alive just for numbers and say, okay, there are like 50,000 tigers in the world, let's just celebrate. But like, are they where they need to be? Are they playing their role in the ecosystem? It's like having a great player on the team and you bench them. Like they're not contributing, but you're still like, you have them just so that you can show like, okay, we have this great player, but like they're sitting on the sidelines and not contributing. And we're putting all this effort and these resources to train and keep this person around, but it's not giving any returns. It's not doing anything. So I don't understand conservation, and a lot of people don't understand that this kind of conservation is just conservation for the sake of it, and it just really doesn't have any any benefits in the long run.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great comparison that I hadn't really thought about. Yeah.
I
And
just
I
came
wish
up with it. Yeah, I'm really
look
surprised
at
with myself.
you.
The PhD brain
I
is
know.
PhDing.
Yes. I wish I had, like, as you were doing it, all my brain was going was like, think of an athlete, of an example, and I couldn't think of one. But yeah, it makes all of this sense. It's like, yeah, you're gonna spend all this money, and then it's like, but really, again, we don't conserve these animals, whether it's tigers or sharks or any of the other ones. We don't just do it because. And do you like how I circled myself into this and I started saying we as though
Yeah,
I'm doing any of this?
we're all a part of this.
Exactly. But yeah, it's like we don't do that just so that it's pretty and we can go see them. It's like they serve a purpose. And so it's successful when we're allowing them to serve the purpose that they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a great one, Deb. Look at you. They should give you a PhD in
I managed to
this.
say something useful. So I'm extremely proud of myself. I was like,
Do you want to just end it right there? Be like, and that's a wrap. And we've got it.
we're gonna follow through. We're gonna follow through.
We're gonna got this. Yeah, we got this. Okay, so we've got two more things to kind of that I'm gonna kind of pick your brain while it's firing here.
Yeah.
So for one, so we already had a little bit of are there things that you wish people knew more about? So we can touch on that. But then also, we always try and give a few tips to tourists on how they can be a better tourist. Like just sitting in their homes right now, listening. What are some things that they can do, or that you wish people these kind of can tie into each other?
That's a good question. I think firstly about like and again I'm going to speak more or less in the realm of like wildlife tourism. I know a lot of people visit tiger reserves, or even in India they visit tiger reserves to see the tiger, but like again, I'm not pushing like any bird propaganda, but we are an extremely biodiverse nation. So even these tiger reserves that you visit, I think there's a lot of other wildlife to look at. I mean, a lot of these guides, especially I think if you're a foreigner, they set you up with like, probably, like I said, we love our guests, we love tourists. So they'll probably set you up with like good guides who can speak English, and they are extensively trained, especially the ones in the top 10 like parks. They can speak English. They're trained in spotting animals, and they're trained with like even though they'll have a very limited education, they can probably just have a 10th grade education, but they'll rattle out like scientific names of plants and trees and whatever. So ask questions, converse with them, and they can show you something like something more spectacular. Not as spectacular as a tiger, but I would say almost you can match up to it, like a really cool like reptile, or a really cool bird actually. So but yeah, I mean, don't go in with the funnel vision of just spotting tigers. There's a lot more to see. And they're all good, and most of the species here are endemic, so you can only find them in India. So whatever that you end up seeing is going to be a once in a lifetime thing anyway. So
wow,
yeah,
that's a great
about animal behavior, and these people know a lot of stuff about that. So that's great. And also, I think we go, even domestic tourists go in with this tunnel vision of just like, okay, I'm going to go to the safari, see a couple of animals, take a couple of pictures, and vamoose. I mean, I think it'll be great. This is a great opportunity, because a lot of these communities that live around tiger reserves are tribals, are tribal communities. They're forest dwelling communities, and they have like really spectacular culture. They have really spectacular art. So go and learn about that as well. I mean, there are, again, people. I'm never going to be an advocate of separating people from the wildlife. I think those kind of cultures, especially around tiger reserves, they kind of they are very in tune with the forest. They're very in tune with nature. They're very in tune with their culture. A lot of their cultural practices stem from the forest, and those impacts go back to the forest as well. So ask questions about that. Look at how they build their houses. Did they have a thatched roof? house, where does that grass coming from? It's probably coming from the forest. So you can see these, really small like connections, and it's really amazing to see how these synergies they work together, how they synergize, and you have this really beautiful connection there. So take a moment to like take that in as well. And during my research, I was really blessed to kind of witness that here are people who probably have very little education as compared to most of the people visiting, and they have just this amazing like sixth sense about their environment and their surroundings, and even a beautiful connection with wildlife. So almost they have like a sense of ownership, which is why I was that example that you were giving about the tour guide, when he sensed that these people in his jeep or his safari vehicle were up to no good. That's a sense of ownership that they have, right? Like it's not just about, oh my God, I need to save my job. It's more about like, these people are not, they may be a threat to the wild animals that I witness every day. So we just like bring them out, and that's a truly lovely thing to see.
Yeah. I think those are all just such great points, because I think like a major difference, and again, if you are a listener out there caught up in this idea of traveler versus tourist and things like that, but it is like going to the places that you're talking about to see the tigers. That's a bucket list mentality. That is a tourist mentality of, I've got to make sure these things exist in the world. I've seen them on Instagram. I've seen them wherever. And so now I have to go there, and it's not a trip. It's not a success unless I can check that off of it. Where it's like, at the core, tourism is supposed to be, you're going into another place, you're learning another culture, you're learning about how other people live, you're being open and accepting to all of that. So it's like, if I see a tiger, that's great, but you just described all of this other stuff that would be, that in and of itself is a great opportunity to go and learn, to go and have a great time. And not think of it as like, oh, this is my second or third or fourth choice because I didn't get my sighting of a tiger here. And that's my other thing to it, because again, it's almost like get off Instagram for a bit when you're planning your trip, because you really are just going to you are not getting insider information that these influencers are telling you. Like, you're just having the same trip as the other 100,000 followers that they had. And then on the flip side of it, you don't post it on Instagram. like you say, like, get off your phone for a second and just experience it. But what we also see when we have people post this stuff that is a little bit off the beaten path, that is whatever, then that place gets just overrun with people trying to recreate that. And that in itself changes it. Yeah.
I mean, I won't, be like, go ahead, post on your Instagram or whatever, but it doesn't need to go that second. I mean, I treat my Instagram as my public repository of memories. And like when I'm every few years, I like to like scroll back and see like, oh, what was I doing last April, or like April in 2002, and those kind of things. So I mean, go ahead and do that. That's fine. But like that should never come in the way of just experiencing the moment. Though I did go to an Ed Sheeran concert a few days ago, and I completely was on my phone, taking 5,000 pictures because I absolutely love him. So I mean, I didn't post it right then, but like, I trust me, I'm going to put that on my Instagram. I promise. I will.
You were the one with your phone in the front, just like,
for some of the songs, for sure. I mean, and I don't judge people when they do that, but like, that shouldn't be your a hindrance to your experience at the moment, because that moment of those spotting something in the wild or looking at a tiger for the first time is a core memory moment. And I promise you that, like, it's a core memory moment. It can potentially change the way you perceive your world, your life. I mean, from that moment, like, for example, you see a tiger for the first time, and it completely it blows you away. And then you learn about, okay, this is what tigers are. And then you think about like, okay, why don't we have more of these around? Why are they so rare? Why did it take me like 5 safaris to see one? And then you understand about like the larger picture. Okay, there are like diminishing habitats. There's poaching. There's wildlife trafficking. There's, private ownership of tigers in the US so that they can't live in the wild anymore. And you kind of identify all these problems, and then your behaviors start you unconsciously changing. So it's like, if you're in that moment, you'll be able to, pick these, and there's research on this. Like, these are charismatic moments that can actually like change people's behaviors, and we want to have people to have these moments. But your phone and they can be a hindrance. Your intent to visit a wild space, anywhere in the world, in the US, you go to Africa, you go to India, anywhere that you go, it should be to take away something, to learn, learn at least one thing, take away something like large, and then, a picture or a selfie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's kind of a good tip to go out on for tourists too, is and this is what I kind of tell people a lot, is always ask yourself when you're about to do something, or visit someplace or something, really try and ask yourself why. Why are you going there? Is it are you going there because you are really curious about this, you want to participate in this, you want to do this, or are you doing it because it would make a great picture? And the fact of the matter is, there's all kinds of places that you can still get a great picture. The sunsets every day. Like, just go and take your sunset pictures. But if that's truly the only reason, is like you think it would really up your Instagram cred to have a picture of a tiger up close, or an elephant or a lion, you don't need to go. It's okay. Just go to the zoo, crop everything out, and then you can tell people you were there.
Yeah, for sure.
Nobody's gonna fact check you on that.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dev. As always, it has been great talking with you. It brings us to our end of our episode, and hopefully we've opened the listeners' eyes a little bit more about wildlife tourism and everything that it's about. Before we jump off here, do you want to tell the listeners to follow you anywhere that you want to plug, or do you have a favorite, I don't know, anything that you follow that you would suggest that just puts out some cool stuff?
My Twitter is not as active as I used to be. I want to be active on, X. I still call it.
Get it right, Dev.
So yeah, you can follow me on X. I post sometimes. I need to get back into posting again, but you can follow me on X, and there are a lot of great like photographers in Indian photographers. I can't remember anybody's names right now, but maybe we can. If you follow me on X, I'll tag them.
Oh, there we go.
But yeah, I mean, it's. My Instagram is private, so I nothing more interesting there than just a few Ed Sheeran pictures. So.
Well, Ed Sheeran fans, go and ask Dev. Yeah, ask Dev if you can follow her. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, fantastic.
And,
so
just as a sign of thing, like if you're ever visiting a park or an outdoor, a national park or something, just again, like I think we've touched on it before, just be respectful. Just ask around people like what a good what would be good behaviors to kind of exhibit. Usually your tour guides brief you. Just listen to your tour guides. They go on tours every day. Just follow instructions. It's not that hard. And and
exactly
keep all kinds of your entitlement at home, because in the forest the tiger's the king. So
what a great line to go. God, Dev, you are just full of the great lines today. Oh, what a great way to sign off.
But yeah, I think you got there.
You're in it. You want to go for another hour?
Yeah,
let's do it. All right. And so for the listeners, if you want to continue hearing more about all things tourism, feel free to follow us on Instagram at You're a Tourist. or subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
All right. And we're done, Zoe. Wasn't that? See, that was